So today give continuation to chapter 16 of the Gospel in accordance to Spiritism. We cannot serve both God and Mammon. We're going to start on item 11, the use of which. But it has been a month since we last talked about it. I just want to recall a little bit of what this chapter is all about. Of course, we're going to see throughout the studies. But just to recap, not that this chapter is any more important than any other chapter in this book. Not that we need this more than we need anything else in this book. The teachings of Christ are equally important. The ability of Kardec to summarize all Christ's moral teachings in this book is something absolutely extraordinary, absolutely fantastic. And we see it here that in this book, in this chapter, there's lots of evangelical events, lots of parables told to us by Christ. And we see the preoccupation of Jesus Christ on this topic of you cannot love both God and Mammon. And of course, Mammon here symbolizes wealth. Here symbolizes prioritizing material possessions, material means. In some of the many readings of the word Mammon, I found that there's also a name of one of the Assyrian gods. That was the god of wealth, the one that would help us to become rich, and people do make sacrifices for this god and make statues and everything honoring this god, and was somewhat someone that respected could bring us wealth. And we can definitely question ourselves if we do not still in our days, if not specifically ourselves, most likely ourselves, but the community, the society, the world that we live in today does not also still have worship to this god Mammon, even if don't call it a god anymore, if we don't kind of prioritize this god above all other gods. Remind that all of us, we follow something, that we live in accordance to some kind of principle. No, most of us are followers. There are very few leaders and a lot of followers. And it's upon ourselves to look into ourselves and see, what is it that I follow? What is my principle? And make sure that upon recognize that perhaps we are following Mammon more than God, that perhaps we are honoring and prioritize Mammon more than God, that we kind of, one, assimilate, recognize, accept, and two, do not stop there, move towards reversing that priority, that you prioritize the God present to us by Jesus Christ, and not Mammon, not the monetary power that really controls us. So you see here in this chapter, there's the chapter that Kardec brought the most number of evangelical events, comments of Jesus Christ itself, parables that Christ have told us. In this chapter, again, equal importance, most of them, Kardec really brought a lot of quotations of Jesus, and it cannot be just by gratuity of destiny. For everything that is in this book, everything that is Kardec has done has a purpose, has a cause. Okay, more important, the purpose, the objective. So Kardec is really banging into us the necessity to review our priorities, to review what's most important for us as the eternal spirit. It's obvious that Kardec and the doctrine itself recognize the importance of one incarnation, recognize the importance of this physical life, this physical body. The priority is indeed to teach the eternal spirit, to educate the eternal spirit for the eternal life. And for this reason, they insist so much in us to being very careful with this priority, because we cannot really love two things at the same time. And of course, taking understand that the word to serve or to love means exactly that, in terms of priority. Nobody's asking you to abandon the importance of this physical existence, the importance of being wise with the financial resources that we have, being careful to be self-sufficient, being careful to safeguard oneself for the future. No one is denying those necessities that this life imposes upon us, or that Kardec and of course Jesus is asking us is to have this sense of priority, that the priority is to serve God, and the only way to serve God is to serve God's creation. Because again, what is it that God needs from us? What is it that the absolute perfection needs from us? Absolutely nothing. So the only way that we can serve God, the only way that we can serve the Creator is to serve the creation. The only way that we can be good to God is to be good to the creation, and the creation as a whole, to our brothers and sisters. Love your neighbors, to follow the commandments, as Jesus suggests over here, to protect the environment, to protect the oceans, to protect the forests and everything. All of that is to serve God. Because again, the only way that you can serve God and the only way that you can be good to God is to be good to God's creation, including ourselves, of course. Right? So Kardec brings many of those evangelical, biblical, if you want, passages, starting with the salvation of the rich, right, in which Jesus states that if you want to be perfect, go and sell all you have, or go and sell all you have and give the money to the poor, and you will have a treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. And that is the reference of the young man, the rich young man who comes to Jesus and asks, what can I do to reach eternal life? And Jesus says, follow the commandments. So I already do. Which one? And Jesus go and tell most of them there. So I'll do all of that. And then Jesus said, okay, if you really want to be perfect, just put yourself of your possessions, sell everything, give to the poor, and come and follow me. Which was, of course, a test, so to say, to see if that individual was really prioritizing the eternal life as he asked for. He asked for the eternal life. Well, eternal life does not include the material possessions. Does not include the horses that you own, the slaves that you have, putting at that time of Christ, naturally, right? The houses that you own, the business, the money in the coffers, not that includes, is involved in eternal life. So if you want to be perfect, if you want to talk about eternal life, you don't need none of them. Get rid of everything and come and follow me. Well, unfortunately, he was not able to do so. Are we? If Christ comes in today, right now, and say, "You ready? Come and follow me." Get rid of everything that you have, and that likely will include your own family. And come and follow me. Follow me. Remember the disciples, they left their families behind. When they went to follow Christ for those 3 years, they didn't bring their families. They followed Christ without nothing but the faith in Christ. Can we do it? And another one that he brings is the one that guard yourself of against avarice, and in which someone come to Christ and ask him to be basically the judge, asking that his brother would share the wealth that was coming to them. And and Jesus answered, who made me? Who made the judge to judge you and to decide your atonement, allowment, I'm sorry. And Jesus advised them, be careful to guard yourselves against the avarice, for no matter how much abundance you may have, his life does not depend on the rich he possesses. Indeed, as just said here, there are many, perhaps even the most important events in our lives is beyond our control. It's above us. If you don't have the humility to understand that, comprehend that, we are very foolish intellectually, morally. Even purely intellectually, if you do not recognize that there are a lot of things in our lives that is really beyond us, something is really wrong with our intellect here. Again, the fact that we are all here sitting right now, exercising our free will, being able to do this now, somewhat we use our free will to be here now. But there are many other things that could have stopped us from being here right now. You know, a little timing bomb in our brain ready to explode would stop us from being here right now. And in this parable we did that expresses the avarice is about a man who is the absolute example of selfishness, who did this diligent work, who was able to prepare the soil, take care of the plantation, and was able to cultivate and harvest this tremendous amount of grains. Good for him. Should be proud, and anyone should be proud of the hard work that one does, and be proud of the results of our own hard work. It's justifiable, and it's sacred. Labor is sacred, right? But then having so much excess could not, in one, at least think of others, but thought only of one of himself. What do I do with so much grain right now? I cannot consume this. I cannot even sell off this. It's so much grain and my production is so great. What do I do with that? So I know I'll build an even bigger deposit of all the grains, and then I spend my whole life enjoying the results of my labor. Again, it's beyond us, our lives. For that same day, his physical life was about to be taken away from him. Things are not under our control. And usually that's what happens with us who only try to hold things on only for ourselves. We live our lives not enjoying it and leave it behind for someone else to enjoy it. Very often, that's what happens. Also bring the another parable, another story that not a parable, I'm sorry, another event on the Christ's lives on the with the publican and rich man Zacchaeus, who again climbed the sycamore tree because it was too short, could not see Jesus passing when he was entering Jerusalem, and Jesus invited himself to go to his house, so to say, which kind of offended the religious community for their lack of understanding that Christ is here for the need. And Zacchaeus, upon receiving Christ, have a transformation of mind and promise to pay everyone to whom he had unjustly taken anything away and give half of his wealth to the poor. And Jesus told him, this house has received salvation today because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save those who are lost, which is a passage of hope for all of us. But regardless what we have done up to now, upon receiving Christ, just like I used it, received Christ. This very important symbolic meaning here of receiving Christ. We act on it. You understand? And we act, right? That there is hope for all of us. We are all Zacchaeus over here, all who are wasting the potentials of doing good with what we have, with the talents that we have. But once we received Christ, we have the opportunity to prioritize once again and put God above mammon. And it continues the parable of the rich man, which is again a very strong parable.
Yeah.
It also stresses the necessity to avoid selfishness. Tells the story of the extremely rich man, so rich who dressed in purple and linen every day, who treated himself magnificently every day, to not show how rich this man was. And on the other side, there was Lazarus, that was at the outside walls of this rich man in absolute poverty, with the body completed filled with ulcers, that only the dogs had compassion towards him. And the man who would be happy if he could only get the crumbles that falls from that rich man's table. Not even that he could get. Naturally, eventually, like everybody else, both are discarnate. Lazarus is found in the companion of Abraham and the rich man, and the saved ones, and the rich man needs, it goes to, of course, to the lower zones and represent here as perhaps the so-called hell. And Abraham explains that there is that differentiation that separates them now. For the one who had nothing was able to endure the difficult trial of having nothing, succeed in this difficult trial, and now is getting reward of it. On the other side, the rich man had a difficult trial, equally perhaps even more difficult trial of the wealth, of being able to distribute that wealth, at least the excesses of that wealth, and was unable to do so, and now needs to deal with the consequences of it. Continues the parable of the talents, in which one is giving five, the other one's given 10, the other one's give five, the one's given one, and everybody used those talents and multiplied that, except the one received just one, who out of fear buried that talent, and that one that was punished for not properly used that talent, which symbolizes that God provides to us in accordance to our potentials to utilize it, but it is in the law that we have put it to good use. Or at least try. That fear is not compatible with God. God does not give us fear. Fear comes from ignorance, fear comes from laziness. And that we have to deal with the consequences when we do not put those talents to good use. Again, to serve the creation. So there's many, many parables of Christ, and all gathered at one thing, prioritizing our importance here. God above Mammon. The the life of the perpetual life of the spirit above one single reincarnation. And uh, we'll continue now at item 11, the use of riches.
Okay. Okay. The use of riches. Number 11. You cannot serve both God and Mammon. Remember this well, you who are dominated by the love of gold, you who would sell your soul to possess treasures because they can set you above other people and provide you with the pleasures of the passions. No, you cannot serve both God and Mammon. Therefore, if you feel your soul dominated by the covetousness of the flesh, make haste to rid yourselves of the yoke that crushes you, because the just and strict God will say to you, what did you do with the wealth I entrusted to you, you unfaithful steward? Only to serve your personal satisfaction did you use that driving power for doing good deeds? What then is the best use of wealth? Seek in the words, love one another, the solution to this problem. Therein lies a secret for the good use of riches. Those who are animated by love for their neighbor have their course of action all traced out. The use of wealth that best pleases God involves charity, not that cold and selfish charity that consists in scattering around oneself the surplus of a golden existence, but rather the charity filled with love that seeks out the unfortunate and lifts them up without humiliating them. You who are rich, give of your superfluity. Do more. Give something of what you consider necessary to you, because what is necessary to you is still superfluous. However, give wisely. Do not reject those who complain about because you are afraid that you might be deceived. Go to the source of the ill. First, seek to alleviate. Next, gather information and see if it worked. If work, counseling, or even affability might not be more effective than your charitable donations. In addition to your wealth, spread all around you the love of God, the love of neighbor, and the love for one's neighbor. Set your riches upon a foundation which will never fail you and which bring you the big profits of good deeds. The riches of intelligence should serve you just as the riches of gold. Spread the treasures of learning all around you. Scatter the treasures of your love over your brothers and sisters, and they will bear fruit.
Thanks. Remember this well, you who are dominated by the love of God. That's a very important, very strong word, dominated, right? Which to me, I interpret that as most of us will be tempted most of us will have a tendency to look to the power of financial means. It is a very powerful, strong force, undeniably, especially in the world that we live today. We have to put greatest effort not to become dominated by 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 this force, by this desire to live in accordance to this force, or what it can bring to us in terms of um, material or physical pleasures, because extremely tempting. And then it continues over here. Therefore, if you feel your soul dominated again by the covetousness of the flesh, make haste to rid yourself from the yoke that crushes you, because the just and strict God will say to you, what did you do with the wealth I entrusted you, you unfaithful steward? Again, I believe that Spirit is telling us here that we are vulnerable, that we may and will be tempted to allow ourselves to be dominated by gold, by the desire of possess more and more and more and accumulate more and more and more, and allow selfishness and pride to be the two strongholds that controls our lives. Then we become indeed the servants to those two vices that corrupt us more than anything else: selfishness and pride. But at the same time, it brings us that there is a solution, that you have the tools to resist this tendency that still resides within us. And the tool, the solution is in the teachings of Christ. Love one another. Which tell us that he's not condemning the wealth itself. He's condemning the use of the wealth. He's condemning selfishness, because the two things cannot live together, right? Selfishness and love one another. So if you love one another, we're able to, if not eliminate, at least to not act in our selfishness. And ask us to exercise charity, at least what's the surplus of us. But it has us to be careful that use the charity filled with love, that seeks out the unfortunate and lifts up without humiliating them. And for us who are rich, he gives to us a very hard, perhaps even asking too much from us. One would ask, and I do ask, when he asks us, give something of what you consider necessary to you, because what is necessary to you is still superfluous. That's very strong. Even what we consider to be absolutely necessary to us, in reality, it's superfluous to us. Which gives to me the meaning that in our selfishness, we bring justification, reasoning to our actions or lack of actions in some cases, saying those things are necessary. And we find all kinds of, because we can always justify what we do or what we don't do, right? We always find justifications for it. Oh, I didn't give because I need it. I don't know about you guys, but I had from time to time, I go through my things in the cabinet or in the refrigerator, and I find things that are expired, and I have ended up putting garbage. I cannot give something that is expired, right? And what is it? Well, perhaps because I went to the market, I forgot they already had the one in the refrigerator, and I bought another one, and now it's more than I will consume, but it stays over there. Why don't I have the love one another, the charitable mind that says, oh, accidentally I bought an extra one. Chances are it will expire before I can consume it. Why don't I go right now and give it someone who may need it, and give to a those food things that collect things here to a church or to wherever provides food for the poor. Why don't I have the attitude, the charitable attitude to act as a Christian and say, it's a very good chance that these things may expire before I can be able to consume it. And then I don't do that, it is an act of selfishness. It is an inability to think of others. I go to my closet and I see an excess of clothes that I haven't used in 3-4 years already, and perhaps not even fit me anymore, but it's still sitting over there. Why? Why don't I have the attitude, the Christian attitude to think, good chance I'm not going to wear this. It's still in perfect condition. Somebody may need it. Somebody may make good use of it. The same way that, philosophically speaking, a flute is only happy when it's being played because the flute was created to be played. The clothes was made to be worn, and it's sitting in a closet doing nothing is an act of selfishness in my part, or whoever is doing it. And since I'm a very average person, say the average individuals are doing it. So the invitation by this spirit over here is to expand our ability of thinking, expand our ability of thinking beyond ourselves. And that's what to love your neighbor means over here. Think of others as well as you think of you. Or you bought this in the market because you like this, because you consume this, but you don't need two of this. You're not gonna, sorry, you're not gonna be able to consume two of these. Chances are it's gonna expire in the refrigerator, and chances are you're gonna end up in the garbage. So be smart. Be smart with your possessions. It's a surplus. You don't need it. Somebody else does need it. And that goes along with everything, not only the physical things. It brings over with intelligence. And before that, very important, something here that struck me also. Give wisely. Do not just reject those who are complaining, those who are putting up a show in the subway or in the subway station with the lamentations and perhaps lies, perhaps truth. I don't know on how his or her situation is absolutely worse, and we have that fear of being deceived. The guy is trying to fool you and fool everyone else. Why do we think like that if not pride? I cannot be deceived, and nobody can fool me. I'm too smart. Purely pride. How do you know if it's truth or not? We don't know. You just give. And that you did your part. Allah, no. And if that individual is indeed deceiving, whose problem is that? Who needs to deal with the consequences of being deceiving? And who's going to have to deal with the consequences of not providing when we can to someone who may need? And going beyond, seek to alleviate. Next, get information and see if it work. Now, very important, counseling and even affability might not be more effective than charitable donations. At that moment, when I read that for the first time, I saw the word "not" over here is wrong, right? Because you always think about that educate to providing love and affection is more important than give $1, and we always know and agree to that. But over here, it says counseling or even affability might not be more effective than your charitable donations. And I have to look at other um, editions of this book in English, and I have to resource them on in Portuguese, and all of them say the same. It's not. And then you need to think that perhaps those individuals is in such a level and a level of need, both physical and perhaps even moral, that the only thing that we can do for them at that point is assistentialist, provide what they need at that moment or what they ask for at that moment, that they are not reachable by counseling at that moment or by affability at that moment. The only thing that we can reach them at that moment is by giving them $1, to give them 25 cents, to give them a sandwich, to give them whatever, a piece of cloth, that our advices, there are counselings, there are affections, may not reach them at that moment. I remember when Chico Xavier was being criticized because he would go to jails to visit the prisoners, and I have said that a couple of times before, and would bring to them, again, at the time that we didn't, our science was not so advanced, he bring to them cigarettes, kind of vulgar or average kind of magazines, like nothing big, and he was criticized why Chico's doing that. He should bring them the gospel according to the Spiritism, should bring them, Paul and Esteban, he should bring them the messages of Emmanuel. Why bring them cigarettes? Why bring them, sports magazines and stuff like that? And Chico's answer was that they did not ask me for the Spirit's book. They did not ask me for the gospel according to Spiritism. But they asked me every time they go there for cigarettes. They asked for magazines of popular reading, sports and gossip. That's what they ask me for. That's what I bring to them. I go them to visit them, to bring some satisfaction, have some happiness to them, not for myself. If it was for me, I'll bring them, the gospel according to the Spirit, but that's not what they want from me. So in our selfishness, we even impose upon others what others should receive from us. What we demand from them that they accept what we have to give to them, since it's not, even if though it's not what they ask from us. Because those in the prison at that time, that's all they could get. That's all they could satisfaction, they could open, perhaps the opportunity for later on, they may ask Chico, can you bring me a little book of those things that the spirits tell you? Maybe you have to open those windows of opportunity slowly. Gonna go to the prison right now when someone that is unaware of anything say, here's the spirit's book, read it. They're not interested in it. But if I go over there and just sit with them and just bring them a cigarette and let they say whatever they want to say 2 or 3 times, before they ask, what's it with you, man? You come over here and they say, oh, Spiritism teaches me that. And then ask, what the heck is Spiritism? And you open a window of opportunity right then and then. Julio still does that, right, João? He works in prison.
I don't know, Wayne. Julio Carvalho still goes to the prison, still work there, or he changed?
No, he had switched jobs from the prisons to hospice.
Oh, wow.
And recently he opened a company of his own, which he, with his, what's it called? He does psychological counseling for troubled children in New Jersey. Started a company, and he left the hospice business as well due to during the COVID issue. They were forcing him to sooner or later would force him out anyway because of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but he used to do a very beautiful work in the prison, taking. They actually, yeah, it took a lot of spirits book to the prisons. Yeah.
Yeah, but he'd have to wait for the window opportunity. He could not go over there and you read this, you read this. You know, it's a slow process that works with us. Because sometimes all they want is a cigarette. Forget it about the spirit's book. But if you provide them the cigarette today, tomorrow they may be opened for the spirit's book. So we have to have that humbleness in our existentialism to provide towards what's needed at that moment. And that goes well with everything else that we do, include the richness of intelligence, which should serve you just as the riches of gold. Again, all talents are equally important. We all have developed through our own work naturally, most of those talents. Some people develop the talent of being extremely good at business, ability of make wealth. Should use it. There's nothing wrong with that. Use it. But when you use and develop your wealth, make sure that you have that priority straight up. That God first, Mammon second or third or fourth, I don't know, but God first. That the recipe for happiness is exactly the happiness that you make to others. Keep that in mind. That if you have the ability of producing wealth, yes, produce as much as wealth as you can. And if you're able now produce jobs, create jobs, provide education, and that will bring the satisfaction that of seeing the results of your labors right here, right now. You don't have to wait to get the reward when you reach, when you leave this physical body behind. It's available to us now, because this is the kind of pride that is good to us, to see that you've done the work, to see that your effort is bringing happiness, satisfaction, providing to others as much as it does to yourself. For not doing it, for not properly using the talents, you go back to the parable of the talents again, the one who buried the talent, and you gotta see the struggle for it. We come here with tremendous amount of talent, tremendous intelligence, tremendous ability to produce wealth, tremendous ability for the arts, you know, tremendous ability for music, so to say. Use it. All of those things are important, and but when you use it, to make sure that you don't use for your own satisfaction only. If you have that most great ability to play the piano, but you close yourself inside your own home and you only play to pleasure yourself. What good is it? If you don't share that ability, the power that music has to bring moments of satisfaction, of happiness, of consolation, of hope for many around you. Music has that ability. Use it. The same thing is the ability of intelligence. If you're very good at problem solving and you only resolve your own problems and don't get anybody's else problem, what good is it? But once you use that talent and you resolve problems for you, help others resolve their problems, that give you that satisfaction of acting in accordance with the natural laws, the laws of labor that is in the Spirit's book, the laws of charity that we see in the Spirit's book. Then we have that complete harmony of you and the divine laws that resides in your conscience. And that's the greatest reward that we can get, according to the spirits. The attainable happiness in this planet of trials expiation is peace with your own conscience, or peace with the divine laws that resides in that conscience. And that is attainable right here. You don't have to wait to collect the rewards of it. Comments?
I mentioned several times before that movie, same kind of different as me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is when the guy that's receiving the couple of dollars tell him, do you think the couple of dollars is what makes the difference? The attention you're paying to me is what makes the difference. And I think that that's a very important concept that we many times forget, right? We give money and turn our heads. Or we throw some piece of food and turn our heads. And what they need to be is not be invisible to us. And it's challenging. It's not easy, but I always carry that with me and repeat that.
It's interesting. The other day I was online, got something to eat, and comes someone definitely homeless who pointed at a cookie and asked for that cookie and asked for money for the cookie. So I told the person that just give him the cookie and pay for it. And then the guy, definitely mentally disturbed, changing my four, two or three different types of cooks over there. And he keeps playing with the with the server over there. I don't know, give me that one. And the guy put that one in the back. No, give me that one, give me that one. I start to get angry. I start to get upset for that server. So come on, get your cookie, get out of here already. Didn't speak with the guy already. I only spoke with the servant. So I gave him the cookie. I didn't have the harmony, the simplicity to look at, oh, you're hungry? Here, you can have him enjoy it, have a good day. But no, not even, I don't even know if I look at the guy. On the contrary, it's got to be irritated by his inability of make a decision, make a choice. It's there, the need of this individual. But in my selfishness, perhaps my pride, I was start to get irritated because, I'm paying for it, just get something and move on because I have to move on as well. We need to look at those things. Those things that happens in our lives that we have to use as mirrors that reflect what we really are, where do we really stand. That advice of St. Augustine of every night to do this recap is very important, because when those little things that happens in our life, it happens to everyone. Again, I'm a very average person, so it happens to me, happens to everyone. Other things that we need to pay attention, that have to, regurgitate at one point in our life and make sure that we make adjustments on those in ourselves for those little things that happens to us. Okay, number 12.
Okay, number 12. Whenever I consider how short life is, I am grievously impressed by your insensate preoccupation with your material welfare, whereas you attach so little importance and devote so little time to your moral improvement, which shall be counted to you for eternity. In seeing your industriousness, one might believe that it is connected with an issue of great interest for humankind, whereas in most cases it is nothing more than an attempt to satisfy exaggerated needs and vanity, or to give yourselves over to excesses. How much grief, worry, and torment you inflict upon yourselves. How many sleepless nights to increase wealth that is often more than sufficient already. At the height of such blindness, one often sees those to whom an immoderate love for wealth and the pleasures it provides subjected to painful labor, priding themselves of a life full of sacrifice and merit, as if they were actually working for others and not for themselves. Fools, do you then really believe that the worries and efforts motivated by selfishness, greed, or pride will be taken into account while you neglect the care of your future, as well as the duties that fraternal solidarity imposes on all those who enjoy the advantages of societal life? You have been thinking only of your own bodies, whose well-being and pleasures have been the sole object of your selfish solicitude. For your body, which dies, you have neglected your spirit, which will live forever. That master so cherished and cared for has become your tyrant. It commands your spirit, which has become its slave. Is that the purpose of the existence that God has given you? A protective spirit.
Thanks.
Mm.
Again, in a sense of priority, all the efforts, everything that we put in our lives, in this physical life of ours here, how often that we forget that the true objective of being here is to elevate the eternal spirit, to upgrade the eternal spirit both morally and intellectually, and not to gather as much possession as possible. Then in reality, and Emmanuel says that, and Joan D'Angelo repeats that very clearly also in her work, that our suffering is for the things that we don't have. We suffer for the things that we don't have. We suffer because we don't have a big house, because whatever, how big it is, our house is never big enough. We suffer because we don't have the latest, most advanced automobile, as if the car that we have does not take us to point A, from point A to point B just as much as the most advanced technologically most comfortable car takes us. Naturally, some will offer more comfort, but it will take us from point A to point B the same way. And there is the watch on our wrist that costs $12.50 and the one that costs 12 millions. But the one on 12.50 tells a different time, or the one that costs $1 million. But we suffer because we have one that costs $12 and gives the same time as one that costs $1 million. Because our priorities is always screwed up, because we are really indeed fools. So we suffer for the things that we don't have. And we also suffer to guard the things that we have. So we have to create huge walls, 15, 18 meters high walls around our property, so no one can come in and steal anything for us. You have to put 6, 7 different protecting devices, electrical and mechanical devices, because we have to protect what we have. We are proud and ignorant enough to buy a bottle of whiskey, the most precious whiskey in the world, that costs $1.2 million, and we'll never taste it. And it's the most wonderful, the most tasteful whiskey ever made. And we put $1.2 million and we buy it, and we have to secure it inside the coffer and protect it with our life, and you never even tasted of it. So how great is that whisk? With somebody else, I don't know, I never tasted, but I know that it's say that it's the best of the world, and we suffer because of it, because our priority is always screwed up. When we change our priorities, and according with the walking of Socrates, I just like to look at all those merchandise out there that I don't need to be happy. When we prioritize our happiness, does not dependent of a $1.2 million bottle of whisk. On the contrary, this is a source of distress. Spend my whole life guarding this thing, protecting this thing. Please don't even look at it. You may break if you just look at it. If we change our priorities, then we find that happiness is much, much easier to attain and to live with than seeking to find that happiness in immaterial things. Again, we suffer the things that we don't have, and we are jealous of those who have, and we spend our entire life trying to conquer and to have those material things instead of living a life. We are more important in making a living than having a life, because our priority is always screwed up. So in this passage, the Spirit here is inviting us to revise our priorities, to look what will it put God first, put Mammon, I don't know where Mammon belongs, fourth, fifth, I don't know. And if we do love God, we have to love God not only with words, but with actions. And again, the only actions of loving God is to do good for the creation. Should we devalue the physicality? Of course not. Should we devalue our experience here? Of course not. Take care of this body, take care of this life. Make sure that you are self-sufficient. Make sure that having the potential, the ability, you're not going to be collecting employment. You work and do for yourself. But if it comes to a point where you don't have a choice, you have to collect unemployment, you do so with humbleness. You accept that trial without rebelliousness. But place the spirit always above the body. The body will eventually be consumed by the worms of earth, or by fire if you choose to burn it. But we cannot be consumed. Okay, comments? Okay, number 13.
Number 13. Since humans are the trustees and administrators of the wealth that God places in their hands, a strict accounting will be demanded of them regarding the use they have made of it in virtue of their free will. The bad use consists in using it solely for their personal satisfaction. Good use, on the other hand, consists in all the times that it results in some good for someone else. The merit is in proportion to the sacrifice one imposes on oneself. Beneficency is only one way of employing wealth. It relieves misery, appeases hunger, saves from the cold, and provides shelter to those who lack it. However, an equally impressing and meritorious obligation consists in preventing misery from occurring in the first place. It is there, principally, where the mission of the great fortunes lies, a mission to assist in all sorts of projects which such fortunes can help to execute. Were such projects to provide a legitimate profit, good would come of it nonetheless, because labor develops the mind and exalts the dignity of people, who are always proud to be able to say that they have earned the bread they eat, whereas the receiving of alms humiliates and degrades them. Wealth concentrated in only one hand should be like a fount of living water that spreads and well-being all around it. O you wealthy who employ your riches according to the designs of the Lord, your heart will be the first to quench its thirst at the beneficent fount. In this very lifetime, you will enjoy the infallible delights of the soul instead of the material delights of selfishness, which leave a void in the heart. Your name will be blessed on the earth, and when you departed, the sovereign Lord will say to you, as in the parable of the talents, O good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of your master. In this parable, is not the servant who buried in the ground the money that had been entrusted to him, the image of the greedy, in whose hands wealth remains unproductive? If Jesus speaks primarily of alms, it is because at the time and in the land in which he was living, one did not know about the work that the arts and industry will create later, and in which wealth could be usefully employed for the overall good of society. To all those who can give little or much, I will say, give alms when necessary, but as much as possible. Convert them into wages so that those who receive them will not feel ashamed. Felelon.
I kind of like of this passage from Fenelon also. I think it's so, let's say, up to date, it's so current, it's so for now in our days, in the applications of Christianity, the teachings of Christ for our days that you live today. Again, the only thing that we're going to bring home with us after our day at school over here, our days in the hospital over here, is what you have learned. It is the consequences of what we have done, and of course the consequence of what we have not done and should have. Nothing else comes with us. So, including the physical body, all the wealth, big or small, is we are trustees of it. It's our talents placed in our hands for us to multiply it, like in the talent, in the part of the talents. The one who got 10 multiplied, the one who got 5 multiplied, the one out of laziness and fear chose to bear it and got in trouble for it again. It lives clearly in that passage that we are meant to use our potential ability to make things, to get better, to grow, so to say, and that includes wealth. No, the one who got in trouble is the one who did not multiply, who did not double their wealth, and according to the parable that Jesus teach to us. And that brings to the question, okay, you multiply it, now what do we do with that? And then comes to the bad use consists in using it solely for their personal satisfaction. The good use, on the other hand, consists in all the times that it results in some good for someone else. And you go back to André Luiz, and I believe it's action and reaction. I don't know. I'm very bad with the books. But there's a passage with André Luiz goes visit a prison spirit. Um, and he asked his mentor at that time, seeing that individuals, that personalities in prison at that time, and he sees beyond the physical body that not everyone there was really criminals, someone who have committed crimes, but not necessarily criminals. Some over there that make him question, and he asks the mentor, what is good and what is evil? And the mentor answers that good is prosperity for all. Good is good health for everyone. Good is education for everyone. Good is, food for everyone, and so forth and so forth, and the things, and for everyone, for everyone, for everyone. And then André Luiz asked, and what is evil? Evil is all of those things for oneself. So in reality, what's evil? It's selfishness. And what's good? It's work for the good of the common good for all. Everyone wants to be healthy, everyone wants to have education, everyone wants to have food on the table, everyone wants to enjoy the comforts that technology allows us to have, and we all should want and have it. But at the same time that you want it for us and for our kids, should want for others and for the kids as well, then it's good. But when you want all this just for ourselves, then it's evil. So what makes good and evil? Selfishness. What makes good and evil? Intention. All the intention of my labor is for my own comfort, evil. The intention of all my labor is for the comfort of all, good. And that's how you have to prioritize our intentions. Not be afraid of being productive, not being afraid of being rich. And I've said that in the very beginning, when I started Spiritism, start to know it, even less understand that I have now, if it's possible. I always played a lot every week. I played a lot, but at those days, I would only play if it was a reasonable amount. When you get to those crazy numbers, now the hundreds of millions, I would not play because I'd be afraid that I would be corrupted. I would not be able to deal with that. That I would never reach salvation with so much power in my hand. I don't know if I'm any better to deal with that power, but today I'm not afraid anymore. Today I have the conscience that if it does happen, 1 in a billion chance of happening, it is because I'm able to deal with that. Will I fail? It's up to me, it's up to what I do. But not have the fear of being the trustee, to accept the responsibility that God placed in our hand to manage really powerful things like wealth, like a lot of money, so to say. because the opportunity was given to you, because you are ready to deal with that challenge. And if you, out of fear, don't do it now, you're gonna have to do it that later. And perhaps it's gonna be even more difficult. That the one who received 10 talents from the master is because I was ready to deal with them. The one who received the one was ready to deal with one. So we need not have that fear. And when it comes to the exercise of charity, again, it's very nice to go and give food for the hungry, and we should. But if we could work and prevent hunger in the first place, wouldn't that be even better, even more productive? If we could provide a hospital bed for the sick, it's a wonderful thing. But if we would be able to prevent sickness to begin with, wouldn't that be much better? And how do you do that? You do that in many different ways, but by using our intelligence in upgraded science, in understanding better what causes sickness and prevent that, instead of treating illnesses. To prevent illnesses much, much better, easier, and cheaper. It's a win and win and win situation if you're able to prevent illnesses. It's much better to they treat illnesses. If we are able to prevent those massive shootings that unfortunately we're witnessing right now, would it be much better than get the one who did in prison and feel proud that you catch the wrong door? Would be much satisfactory to prevent the wrongdoing to happen to begin with. How do we do that? What is it in my hands that I can do? Anything that we can do to prevent those things. If I have the talent of intelligence, well, let me get in the laboratory and work to understand illnesses and find means to prevent it. If I'm have the ability to produce wealth and business wise, I'd put that money and provide what is necessary for the intelligent one to go into the lab and do that work. And there's many ways of doing it, and everything that we do in that direction, thinking of others, will give the reward. And again, very important that reward does not have to be in the spiritual world when perhaps Peter will be there now. Come in, brother. I'm ready to embrace. We're gonna bring you to hang out with our Father right now. No, there's nothing about that. It's right here we can get that. The satisfaction of again of being peace with our own conscience. And it says here, "O you wealth who employ your riches according to the designs of the Lord, your heart will be the first to quench its thirst at that beneficent fount." So when you provide good to others, we're the first one to get the reward of it, right then and there. The peace with our conscience to be in absolutely harmony with the divine laws in our conscience. Be wise about what we do with our potentials. In this very lifetime, you enjoy the ineffable delights of the soul instead of the material delights of selfishness, which leave you avoiding your heart. Again, there is nothing wrong with producing wealth. There is nothing wrong of putting all your effort to generate, to multiply your potentials, to multiply your forces, as long as you do it for the common good, as long as you do it to all. Education to all, food for all, comfort for all, technology for all, hospital beds for all. Wonderful. And what is evil? All those things for oneself. And bring this that's to our day-to-day, very current, very up-to-date. Fernando says that give alms when necessary, but as much as possible, convert to them into wage so that those who receive them will not feel ashamed. Because again, labor is what dignifies us. Work dignifies men and women. We like to have that positive pride of saying that I am able to fulfill my duty with God, which is to make my own life to the sweat of my brow. That's what he told us, right? When we were ready to leave the accommodation of intelligent principle and become an individualized spirit. And it says, now you guys move out of the so-called paradise. It's time to go and make your own life now. On now on, you're gonna make it with the sweat of your brows. And here's all the rules of the game. Everything is imprinted in your conscience. So you can't claim that you don't know. Okay, comments?
Number 14, detachment from earthly possessions. Brothers and sisters, my friends, I have come to bring my small contribution in order to help you advance fearlessly on the path of improvement onto which you have entered. We are in debt to one another. It is only through sincere and fraternal unity between spirits and incarnates that regeneration is possible. Your love for earthly possession is one of the biggest obstacles to your moral and spiritual advancement. Through this attachment to possessions, you shatter your affective faculties, carrying them over to material things. Be honest with yourself. Does wealth provide an unmixed happiness? Even when your coffers are full, is there not an emptiness in your heart? At the bottom of that basket of flowers, is there not always a hidden serpent? I understand justifiable satisfaction, not felt by a person who, through diligent and honorable labor, has gained a fortune. However, from this satisfaction, very natural and approved by God, to an attachment that absorbs all other sentiments and paralyzes the impulses of the heart, there is great distance. The same great distance that separates solid miserliness and exaggerated wastefulness, two vices between which God has placed charity, that holy and sound virtue that teaches the rich to give without ostentation, so that the poor may receive without feeling debased. Whether your fortune has come from your family or whether you have earned it from your labor, there is only one thing that you must never forget. Everything comes from God and returns to God. Nothing on earth belongs to you, not even your own poor body. Death will strip you of it, just as it will all other material possessions. You are trustees, not proprietors. Do not delude yourselves. God has loaned them to you, and you will have to return them. And God loans them on the condition that surplus at least should go to those who lack what is necessary. One of your friends lends you a certain sum. However dishonest you might be, you will scrupulously pay off the loan and will be grateful to him. Well, then, that is the position of all who are wealthy. God is their heavenly friend who has loaned them their riches. He asks nothing for himself except love and acknowledgement. But he demands that the wealthy in turn give to the poor, who, like the rich, are just as much his children. The possessions that God has entrusted to you arouse ardent and frantic greed in your hearts. Have you never thought about the fact that when you are immoderately attached to riches, as perishable and transitory as you yourselves are, the day will come when you will have to give an accounting to the Lord for what has come from him? Have you forgotten that through wealth you have been invested with the sacred character of ministers of charity on earth in order to be its intelligent distributors? What are you then but unfaithful trustees when you use solely for your own benefit what has been entrusted to you? What will result from your intentional neglect of your duties? Death, unyielding and forgiving, will tear away the veil under which you hide, and will force you to give an accounting to the friend who helped you out and who at that moment stands before you in the robe of a judge. It is in vain that you try to delude yourselves while on earth, coloring with the name virtue what is often nothing more than selfishness that you call sane, and foresight what is only cupidity and greed, or generosity what is nothing but prodigality on your own behalf. For example, the father of a family abstains from practicing charity. He saves and piles up the gold, declaring that he is doing so in order to leave as much as possible to his children so that they will not fall into poverty. That is very just and fatherly, I agree, and one cannot blame him. But is that always the sole motive that guides him? Is it not often just a compromise with his conscience in order to justify his own eyes and the world's, his personal attachment to earthly possessions? Even so, admitting that his fatherly love is his sole motive, is that any reason for him to forget his brothers and sisters before God? When he already has a surplus, will he leave his children in poverty because he will have a little less of it? Instead, is it not really giving them a lesson in selfishness, in hardening their hearts? Instead, is it not stifling in them the love for their neighbor? Fathers and mothers, you're greatly mistaken if you believe that by such means you will have increased your children's love for you. By teaching them to be selfish toward others, you teach them to be selfish toward you also. Those who have worked hard and accumulated wealth by the sweat of their brow are commonly heard to say that when money is earned, one grasps its value more fully. Nothing could be truer. Well then, may those who profess to fully grasp the value of money practice charity according to their means, and they will have greater merit than those who, born in abundance, know nothing about the hard fatigue of labor. But on the other hand, if these same persons who remember their sufferings and efforts are selfish and hard toward the poor, they are much guiltier than the others. For the more one knows from personal experience the hidden grief of poverty, the more one should be inclined to relieve it in others. Unfortunately, there is always in those who are wealthy a sentiment as strong as their attachment to riches, the sentiment of pride. When the poor employ their assistance, it is not rare to see the newly rich woeing them with tales of their efforts and know-how, instead of coming to their aid. And when finishing by saying to them, "Do what I have done," according to them, God's goodness has nothing to do with their wealth. All the merit falls solely to them. Their pride casts a veil over the eyes and shuts their ears. In spite of all their intelligence and skill, they do not understand that God can undo them with a single word. Squandering one's wealth does not show a detachment from earthly possessions, but rather carelessness and indifference. As trustees of such possessions, humans have neither the right to squander them nor to confiscate them for their own profit. Prodigality is not generosity, but is often a form of selfishness. Those who scatter their gold by the handfuls in order to satisfy a fantasy will not give 1 cent to lend a helping hand. Detachment from earthly possessions consists in appreciating wealth for its true worth, in knowing how to use it for others and not only for oneself, in not satisfying one's interest in the future life on its behalf, and in losing it without complaining if it pleases God to take it away. If due to unforeseen misfortune, you become another Job, say as he did, "Lord, You have given and you have taken away. May your will be done. That is true detachment. First, be submissive, have faith in the one who, having given and taken it away, can restore it to you once again. Courageously resist the discouragement and desperation that paralyze your strength. Never forget that whenever God causes you to suffer a blow, he always places consolation along the hardest trial. But remember, above all, that there are possessions infinitely more valuable than earthly ones. And this thought will help you detach from the latter. The less value one attributes to a thing, the less sensitive one becomes to its loss. People become attached to earthly possessions are like children who cannot see but the present moment. Those who do not become attached are like adults who see the things that are most important by understanding these prophetic words of the Savior. My kingdom is not of this world. The Lord orders none to get rid of what they possess and be reduced to voluntary beggary, because then they would become a burden on society. Proceeding in such a manner would be to misunderstand detachment from earthly possessions. It would be selfishness of another type, because it would imply exempting oneself from the responsibility that wealth weighs on those who possess it. God grants wealth to those who seem capable of administrating it for the benefit of all. Thus, the rich have a mission which they can render beautiful and advantageous for themselves. To reject wealth when God has given it to you is to renounce the benefits of the good you can do by administrating it wisely. To know how to do without it when one does not have it, to know how to put it to good use when one does, and to know how to sacrifice it when necessary, is to act in accordance with the Lord's designs. May those who receive what one calls in the world a good fortune say to themselves, my God, you have sent me a new responsibility. Give me the strength to carry it out according to your holy will. My friends, this is what I wanted to teach you regarding detachment from earthly possessions. I will summarize it by saying, know how to be content with little. If you are poor, do not envy the rich, because wealth is not necessary for happiness. If you are rich, do not forget that your possessions have been entrusted to you and that you must justify their use as if you were giving an accounting of expenditures. Do not be an unfaithful trustee by utilizing your possessions to satisfy your pride and sensuality. Do not think that you have the right to dispose for your sole use what is nothing but a loan and not a gift. If you are unable to repay it, you do not have the right to ask for it in the first place. And remember that those who give to the poor are settling a debt that they have contracted with God. Le Cordier, Constantine, 1863.
We went over a little bit.
Okay.
It was a long path. Elmo, lost you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. Didn't have a means to break down. Sorry, so right, I have to read all those pages. But it's what I can do. We can make a comment on that next month. I'll make sure, or you can make a quick comment now. I will continue to make the comment next week. But the whole passage you can summarize in two things: that the problem of wealth is not the wealth itself, is one, the means of acquisition. It could be a problem. And two is attachment. And the word attachment, I would like to expand this word because it involves too many things with attachment. But this whole reading over here, it tells that there is nothing wrong with wealth. Wealth is neutral, just like a knife on the counter is completely neutral. You can use it to hurt someone, and you can use it to make a nice meal to everyone. That's what wealth is, completely neutral. The problem is means of acquisition, could be, or and attachment. And the word attachment, you have to expand those in this word. That's what I would like to do next month. And we stop over here now, and you talk about that next month.
Thanks, Almo. So next Sunday we are going to study the Medium's book, right? It's the third Sunday of the month, and we move the Medium's book there now. So that's what we are going to do next Sunday. And thank you all. Who's going to do our final prayer? Carol?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sarita, and everyone. Infinite Creator, all goodness, all grace, we give thanks today for being together as brothers and sisters for a study of the Gospel according to Spiritism, focusing on the use of riches. Let us release and negate our pride, our selfishness and attachments. And may we remember that charity is the highest virtue, which is love in action. May we apply this through the law of circulation. We have the three keys to assist us: benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. This is the path forward to liberation and relative happiness each day. When in doubt, we can practice the golden rule, and we can share our time, our talent and treasures through discernment. Share goodness each day, for life is short, but life offers many opportunities to be of service. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits who are with us today, guiding us and inspiring us to reach for the higher road, to take the path of heart and of balanced mind. We humbly ask to receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, to assist us as well, to keep us anchored and to keep us uplifted each and every day, to do the right thing, to be of goodness and service, to be helpful in the world, in the community, and to our family members. We continue with our prayers globally for all those who are suffering, those who need assistance. They need assistance through health, through finance, through displacement. May they be reminded to trust the greater good, that all will be provided and they will be found in the best place possible where they need to be. We humbly ask now for safety and protection as we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. And may we continue throughout the week with our prayers, with our studies, and with our mindfulness. We remind ourselves that we are beacons of light. Our hearts are open, our minds are strong, and we ask to be of service each day. Go forth now in peace, so be it.